So we're gonna build a method to select whichever map we want to play. I went ahead and organized these a little bit. So we're gonna build a canvas that's kind of a default canvas. So let's duplicate this one and call it default canvas. This canvas is going to be enabled as soon as we launch the game. So this one will be disabled. In this one, all we want to display is our currency somewhere in here and a play button. So let's do that. And don't forget to do this option in here, scale with screen size, and put a reference resolution. Okay, so this is the default canvas that we're gonna start the game with. Next, we want to kind of animate the camera so it gets closer to the center of the scene. So let's define some values. I've defined a start position of the camera. That's gonna be right here, and when we press play, the camera should smoothly transition from here to there. So let's build the code for that. First, let's organize this code a little bit, and let's do a header. Make a new header that refers to the default canvas that we built earlier. In here, make another header that refers to the vehicle select canvas. And now let's do some coding. So let's do a button. Let's say public void default canvas start button. When this gets triggered, we want the default canvas game object to set activate false. So we want to deactivate the canvas and activate the vehicle select canvas, which we didn't define yet. So let's do that. So let's say vehicle select canvas enabled. True. Okay, so now we have everything laid out perfectly the way we want. So now let's just connect it. Let's connect the start button as well. And now let's see if it works. Hit start and press play. Okay, it works. Now let's connect some more stuff. First of all, in awake, we want to make sure that this canvas is disabled. So let's do vehicle select canvas dot set activate to false, and the default canvas is set to true. After that, let's update the canvas currency into this, and now let's make a function to smoothly transition the camera. I'm gonna build a new block of code, and I'm gonna define some booleans. Okay, so in the camera transition block of code, I simply ask if these booleans are true, which are set into the canvas start button. Simply sets this boolean to true, and if that boolean is set to true, we simply lerp the camera from its current position to its final position. I've defined a new button to go back from the vehicle selector into the default screen. And I'm gonna build another method to transition the camera back to where it was. So here is what it does. You simply just duplicate this one and change the values. So default screen canvas is set to false in here, and in here it's set to true, and the other one is set to false, and in here it's set to true. So it basically does the opposite what this one does. So connect the button in here. Okay, it works basically perfectly. Now instead of transitioning to the vehicle selector, we're going to build another method in between, and we're going to call it map selector. First of all, we're going to make a space in here for the map selector. And now let's make some UI. So in the map selector, we're gonna have a background image that fills up the whole entire screen. Make it a little bit darker, or maybe completely dark. And we want a kind of a array of images. Now we could do that with code, but that's way too much work. So we're just gonna kind of hard code it. So we're gonna make buttons for it. Okay. So since I don't have separate images for my maps, and by the way I have only one map right now, I'm just gonna use this kind of canvas for it. So the way I built it is by using a image, and then inside of image use a button. And now once you've made these, all that's left to do is to connect these. So before we do that, this start button, it loads a new screen. So we're gonna delete that code and we're gonna copy this. So what we have to do is disable these two canvases and enable the map canvas. So what I forgot to do in here is put a button that takes you back from this map selection screen into the vehicle select screen. So let's do that. Once you've defined this button has to do the exact same thing as the default screen button does. It has to send us into vehicle select screen. So we already have a block of code for it. It is vehicle select start button. So it's basically this block of code. So let's reference that. So for me is the default canvas start button. Now since we have 3 canvases, we're gonna have to write another line. You might have guessed it, it's to disable and enable this canvas. So this canvas has to be false. As soon as we launch the game, this canvas has to be false. And when we select vehicle select, that also has to be false. And that has to be true only in the start game button. The start game button is this button right here. Also in the default canvas, we're gonna have to make that false. And now let's test it. Okay. Let's try to press this button. So a slight issue occurs when we try to play the game, is that if you go into this scene view, you can see that this text is overlaying that button. Push this to the side and give it another play. And now it sends us to this canvas. Okay, so since our code works perfectly, now let's load in a map. So in map 1, I'm gonna add a text. I'm gonna call it Super Mario. So you might have guessed it, this button is gonna take us to this map that we are working on in the past few episodes. Now it should be simple for you to understand that once you press this button, all it has to do is load in a new map. Okay, so I've added a block of code that simply loads in a new scene. this Super Mario map, which I've renamed our main scene to a Super Mario map, so we can actually play the game. And now let's just play the game. Don't forget to connect the button. Let's select the vehicle. And it loads it perfectly. We can play it. And we can win the game.